And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of You Get What You Get. I'm Rickey Hampton, along with my co-host Tree Mcdougal and Tim Turner, coming to you on a Tuesday evening. Welcome to March Madness, everybody. I know y'all probably getting your brackets together right now as we speak, as we go on the air. Put those brackets down, guys. We are on the air now.
I'm still working on mine for sure.
To make sure those playing games are there.
I know y'all
Yes.
thinking this is the year I'm gonna win my pool. This is the year I'm gonna win my pool. Well, good luck.
I never think
Ever.
And good luck to everybody out there as you take part in this. What really, Tree, has become a phenomenon, March Madness.
hmm The only thing that might be bigger here in Savannah is St. Patrick's Day. I think we'll take time out for that.
You know,
Oh gosh, I'm still. I keep thinking about the Warren Buffett bet he makes every year. That I think
what's that?
you get $1 million if you pick every single game correct in your bracket.
Really?
Really?
That has never happened.
Hmm.
So there you go.
I'm just winging it so I could do it.
And we have been joined by our great friend from Houston, journalist extraordinaire, Miss Kim Davis. Kim, welcome to You Get What You Get. These
Hey
guys,
there.
Kim, these guys can hardly do the show. They so busy trying to fill their brackets out.
Oh yeah, well they got to get it done by what, tomorrow? Before the play-in start?
I guess they start tonight, but I guess you have to get it done by noon when the real games start.
On Thursday. Don't say
Thursday.
real games, because we got some people playing in those games tomorrow night. Texas Southern's playing in one of those games
Let's
tomorrow
go
night.
TSU.
Oh my goodness! I thought tonight was the night that the people who they didn't really want to be in the tournament was the game, but I guess it is
It's
tonight.
the play-in game, right? Tomorrow night TSU plays in Farley Dickinson. They're in Dayton, Ohio.
Yikes! But all the games are in Dayton for these playing games. They always score that.
Playing game. Hey, Kim, did you follow Antoine Davis when he was at since he left Texas Southern and came up here to Detroit at Detroit Mercy? He's he came within 3 points of breaking.
He became the coach, right?
Yep, his dad's the coach, and he started TSU when Coach Davis came here. He came here with his dad, had just a terrific career. He came within 3 points of breaking Pistol Pete's all-time collegiate scoring record. Yeah, it took him an extra year to do it, but I mean, he was just a terrific player. I don't know how much he was falling down there once he left.
Yeah, I haven't since he left. I haven't, to be honest.
Yeah. But anyway, there was some controversy because they had a losing record this year, but the CVI wanted to invite them, and they mulled it around. The CBI, you actually paid to go. You paid $27,000.
$27,000. Yes,
$27,000 to go. Yeah. And Pistol Pete's son was upset, saying, "Hey, y'all just trying to get this guy to record so badly." But really, nobody was thinking. Everybody understands Pete did it in 3 years.
Right.
3 years and without a 3-point.
Nobody was making. Everybody understood.
So what's the point of playing to go in that tournament? Like, what's the upside? Why would anybody pay that?
Well, I guess the coach will say, "Hey, clearly we need some more practice sessions." Being that we 14 and 18,
right?
But it's not. That's like some of the football bowl games that.
Yeah, they don't have to pay to go though. That's,
right.
You gotta pay.
You would think so. You have to pay me to go to Shreveport in December.
Yeah, but Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We are always grateful to have you on, and take part in this conversation tonight. And I think we're going to start with the NCAA tournament, as I was saying, these guys doing their brackets. I would like to start in the women's division, where we got one of America's great coaches and a team, Kim, that's on a great run, South Carolina.
Don Staley.
Yeah. Your thoughts on Coach Staley and their chances as we get ready to kick this thing off?
Well, it's difficult for me to ever pull against her, right? She's done such an amazing job at every level, and what she's been doing at South Carolina has just been fun to watch. So, wherever they start the season, and it's good to see another woman. I mean, to see somebody else other than, for years it was Gino, right? So I'm glad that Dawn has ascended to that spot, and so I'm always going to have her as being definitely one of my Final Four, and I hope they can win it all.
Yeah. Tree.
Well, Kim, nice to meet you. You should know I know very little about sports, but they let me just hang out with them every week. So, I wanted to say that, I've always watched men's basketball, but I rarely watch women's basketball. So now, I'm trying to get more so into that. Other than South Carolina, and I plan to watch, and I'm filling out my brackets for the women, even though I know very little. But who do you, other than South Carolina, is there anyone else that you're looking at or think has potential to topple them? I hope no one, but I'm just, trying to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so I would tell you, I don't follow a lot of women's college basketball. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I do look at what happens at Texas and A&M. One's my own water, and the other because of, the coach there is always kind of stirring up, getting people a little riled up. So to see one of them making it, if they were able to do something, but I expect it to be some of the regular the people that we always see. And I can't remember. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get that on the screen. Go ahead, Kim. You good?
Yeah, no, I was just looking to see who they're playing. Oh, they're playing Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's Aaliyah Boston there in the post.
Yeah. I mean, plus, you got to like what you see from the SEC schools. I mentioned Texas, of course, that's Big 12. The Big 12's men conference. Yeah, for now. For another, couple years, maybe year and a half. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm distracted by the play. But anyway, no, that's good. And, you always look at UConn. I mean, UConn's always somebody who's going to be in the hunt, even though I don't necessarily pull against them. I was just glad to see somebody else, come up and challenge them. But they have an amazing program.
Has UConn become the women's Duke in terms of being hated by everybody?
I don't know. I guess maybe they are. I mean, and was Duke hated by everybody, or they were just a team that you knew you had to get through? You knew you had to, if you were going to win a championship, you had to go through Duke. I think that's what people felt about UConn for so long. And so, yeah, I guess in that sense, Ricky, maybe they are the women's Duke, if you look at it that way, because they built this tradition.
Tim is shaking his head over there.
No, it's like with UConn, to me, it's real hate. It's something about Ariema. I don't think he likes women in charge. And that's an issue because he had an issue with
I was going to say what?
Women. I think he had a problem with Pat Summitt. He has a problem with Dawn Staley. And he's whining this year because they're a number 2 seed and said if they were anybody else except UConn, they'd be a number 1. So, that dude up there, he always has some sort of agitation going on. And yeah, I don't like UConn because of him. I mean, he gets the best players. He can walk into anybody's house and come out with a player. And yet he still complains when he doesn't get what he wants.
I think it's called entitlement.
Yeah, he very much entitled. Exactly. And I root for them to get blown out, to lose, to suffer.
Wow.
I just do
Wow.
not
That's harsh. That's way harsh.
That's a lot of energy, Tim, that you're giving Gino.
Yeah.
Gino makes it that way because he's not, there's humility and there are ways to go about things with class and everything. And it seems like the older he's gotten, the more crotchety he's gotten. And it seeps out. And so, I want to see him lose. I want to see him get beat down by everybody anytime they go out.
So you're a Duke hater as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. I'm gonna be the back in my day guy. When I was in college, I was in college the year before Krzyzewski got there, and Georgia Tech was spanking Duke by 30. They had the worst basketball team ever. They had one player or two players, Gene Banks and Mike Jaminski. That was it, and they stank. Coach K gets there, recruits a couple of players, and they go on a roll. And it makes it seem like he's a great coach, just like Ariema. You walk in somebody's living room and come out with the best player, you're gonna be great. I mean, granted, you can have all the talent in the world and still be garbage as and still be a garbage team if you don't have a good coach. And I'm not gonna discount that, but let's not make it seem like it was all those guys that built the thing. It was like some sort of harmonic convergence there where they were in the right places at the right time.
Are you not willing to say that Krzyzewski is a good coach?
Oh, I said he's a good coach.
Okay, one of the best?
No, he's a good coach. He has great players.
Wow.
Every year gets great players.
Right. Well, listen, talent matters. We've seen that.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw how Phil Jackson was not nearly as effective when he didn't have any talent.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it does matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Red Auerbach without Russell and Havlicek and Kuzi.
Yeah.
He's
But that's part of it, isn't it? I mean, that's part of it. I mean, who's a heck of a coach? Pete Carroll was a heck of a coach at Princeton.
Yes.
Running that backdoor pick and roll offense, but he didn't never win nothing. I mean, he might put a scare to somebody. Why? He didn't have enough good players.
And I think that's every year. You have people like that, but then you have like people like Bill Self who gets okay players and he coaches them up and they win championships. ACC, they're so strong. The league itself, so many great programs usually so many great programs. This year, not so much. Isn't Virginia Tech the champ this year?
I don't know who
I think in the women, Virginia Tech are the champs, but I'm just saying it was a down year for Carolina, down year for Duke. And, you look at those seeds over there, but in the women's side, I don't think anybody's going to challenge South Carolina. I mean, people say Indiana's got a chance. They say Stanford got a chance.
Stanford, yeah.
Is this the first year that Carolina has not been in the tournament?
Oh, gosh.
I can't think of as long as I've been following Carolina, I can't think of a time that they haven't.
Oh, the men? Oh.
Men, yeah.
It's been a while.
It's heartbreaking.
This year was really hard for them because they were the preseason number one, and they're the first preseason number one to not make the tournament ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know, right?
So, that's really hard. You're in Georgia Tech territory right there, not making the tournament. So, I mean, there's 5 D1 basketball programs in Georgia, and Kennesaw State is the only one going to the dance. So,
isn't that something?
Yeah. Last year they won 1 game. This year they go to the tournament, and I think
I wonder what kind of pressure Hubert Davis is going to face in Carolina. Here in Michigan, over in Ann Arbor, Juwan Howard is getting some heat. The Wolverines were 17-14. He's playing 3 or 4 freshmen and the big junior center Dickinson, who's a heck of a player, and they did not make the tournament. And you hear everybody. The thing about when you lose, it doesn't matter how great a coach you are. When you lose, that's when people who don't like you that have influence, this is their chance.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Last week we talked about Patrick Ewing.
This is their chance. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And they give you a chance if you're a part of a championship, and Juwan was part of the Fab Five, so they gave him a Fab 6 years.
Has it been 6 years?
No. I mean, I'm thinking about you, and they gave him 6 years.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, they gave. Yeah,
and hopefully they give Jawan more. I think Jawan's been there 2-3 years.
This is his third year, right?
This is his third or fourth year.
Third or fourth year.
Yeah.
How much money they give him to try to build a team?
He'll be okay. I mean, he's not. He will not get fired this year. But now, since this has happened, there is a little heat, and I'm sure Hubert Davis is going to feel the same thing down there, even though they made it all the way to the title game. I mean, because those programs is always so much.
The bar is set so high.
Yeah, yeah.
So the expectations are really high.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Kim, I'm rooting for what your guys down there, because I think it'd be a great story.
Who's my guys?
I'm just saying your hometown people, the Cougs.
So those are not my guys. I don't cover them.
Okay, the Aggies.
No,
Aggies
I'm just saying. I mean, if Houston wins, great, but I don't cover the University of Houston, and here's why. Let me tell you why. It's because they're the only people anywhere in the country that will not credential me.
Whoa!
I cover the Final Fours, Super Bowls, Worlds. I cover everything. Their sports information guy is. What did he tell me? I was looking at it. The last email we had. I haven't covered them since 2016, and he said to me, "We just can't let anybody, Kim, come in." So my question was, is there a certain metric or there numbers that you look for in terms of what's it based on? Mm-hmm. And he told me it's not about that. He said, I just don't think that you are committed to college athletics. I said, well, that's not my job. That's yours, right? That's not my job to be committed to college athletics. It's to cover it and to tell the stories. So he told me, this was when I was out. He said, we'll allow you, and then I was done listening. We will allow you to cover practices and press conferences. No, dude, I'm good. And this is before they were winning.
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
So you can imagine now.
Why would I be fighting to cover y'all? You got 2 people in the stands, right? I say, you know what? I got enough to cover. I'm good. So I only cover them when they are in a tournament. And I tell people that, call the show or reach out and say, we don't talk about them here. And here's why.
Okay, officially, they're dead to me now.
I like Kelvin Sampson, but
a pox on their house. I'm trying to find who the SID is for basketball right now, because you don't want to mention his name.
I can't think of his name.
Okay,
what is his name?
Non-important SID of basketball for University of Houston. You're dead to me. As is your program. I was all about Phi Slamma Jam until Kim just said that. America against the University of Houston playing inside their stadium, their home stadium for the Final Four. Root against them like nothing else.
They're going to have a hard time now. Right, they're going to have a hard time. I think that Texas, who's the number 2 seed in the Midwest,
right,
might be the team that emerges. Right, I think they're going to struggle with Texas, and they've got their kid Sasser who's hurt, and if they're quiet about how he's doing. If he's not healthy, they can't win. I mean, they can't. They can win, but they can't go far. He's hurt.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he hurt. He's hurt.
Okay.
Yes. Scratch them off.
Yeah, that was very disappointing.
That is very disappointing. Because I thought that'd be a neat little story. Put a little bow on it. You're there. You don't have to go. It's like the stadium is nowhere from campus, right?
Right. It's 15 minutes from campus.
Exactly.
They played NRG at this football stadium, NRG Stadium.
Okay, can you root for the University of Alabama?
I mean, I could, but why would I do that? I mean, tell me why I'm doing this.
I mean, they're number 1. It's a rare thing, but we got your kids who are there, who are tangentially tinged with some sort of a issue with a gun brought in and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I would root for. Really, and I know people will be like, "Oh my gosh, you're an Aggie," for Texas, right? Even though they messed over Shaka Smart, but then the guy they brought in, he had some issues because he was beating up his girlfriend or fiance or whatever happened, got arrested, and then they had to elevate. Is it Jenkins? So now they are playing really well, and I'd like to see him advance. I'm biased to the brother coaches. I just am.
Nothing wrong with that.
I tell you what, in regard to Houston, they better be careful with if they see Arkansas in that second round.
Yeah.
Eric Musselman, heck of
Yeah.
a coach, heck of a coach, and he will put some stuff together that could give them fits in that second round. Houston opens up with Northern Kentucky and Arkansas. They're going to have a tough game now. In fact, Arkansas plays Iowa. Arkansas is 8, Iowa's 9. Both of those are
really good. Both
really
of those could create some matchup problems for Houston, from what I hear.
Yeah, I really believe that because they are both battle tested. I've watched Iowa up here in the Big Ten, and the Murray kid, his brother is out in Sacramento playing good, and he's going to be a high draft pick as well. And he's a guy that go in there and give him 30, and they get to make us some shots. Houston could be in trouble. But man, I'm a big Calvin Sampson fan too. So
I am too.
And
for a while he
just told me
Rocket.
Calvin Sampson.
So I haven't talked to Calvin Sampson in 6 years, but I covered him, with the Rockets. I covered him when he first went to Houston. He was always great. It's not him, it's his people.
Right.
It's the people around him. And here's this funny. So before I just said I'm done with it, we were at some press conference. Maybe they were opening the new football stadium, and the Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee was there, and we were talking. And I was telling her, she said something about you, and I told her what I just told you. I don't cover them, and you know how she is. So she went to the head guy there, who's now I think in Atlanta. Maybe he went to the Falcons. He was the main SID, and so she went to him because her husband is actually. He's a professor. He's a doctor there, and does something at the president's office or whatever. So plus, her anyway. And she said, Kim Davis is a treasure. I mean, we need her perspective and da 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 da. And he said, we just don't have any space. She said, what you mean you don't have no space? She looked at him and she said, what makes some space? And then she said, she's the only Black woman. He goes, and that doesn't really matter. I said, Congresswoman, she was like, I need to follow up, but that's not something I need her to down a sword for me about. It ain't that important. It may be something else I need. I'm good with it.
Okay,
Wow.
I want to switch gears for a hot second to the NFL because this free agency stuff is flying fast. Okay, so you guys have what, the number 4 pick, and which
The
quarterback?
number 2 pick.
Number 2. Which quarterback are you taking? The other one? Or is it?
Listen, I'm super excited about D'Amico Ryans being the head coach. I'm out on Nick Caserio. I just don't think he knows what. I'm just not impressed. I've never been impressed, and I'm not super confident. Maybe D'Amico's gonna have more say, but I don't know. I think you take the other one, right? Whoever's not there, because who knows what Carolina's gonna do? Didn't they today sign? What's his name? He was here
Andy Dalton.
Is it Dalton?
Yeah, Andy Dalton.
Yeah, they signed him.
$10 million contract to be a backup per se. So,
Well, Garoppolo had a big backup contract last year in San Francisco. Certain folks can get good backup contracts when the league is not colluding against you, which is a whole nother story.
Oh, that's okay. Okay.
I talked about it today. I feel like the Lamar Jackson thing, it feels like collusion to me.
And I want to get into that.
Yeah.
We definitely.
Well, why don't we get into it now? Because I think what you call it, Lamar, the league's trying to punish Lamar instead of punishing the owner in Cleveland.
Well, there's a couple things the league is trying to do. They're trying to they want y'all to know you don't run anything. So we can't have Lamar Jackson getting all this money and his manager is his mother. What in the world kind of messes with that sin? Like y'all have some kind of agency and you can do your own thing? It's much bigger than just the Deshaun Watson piece, right? They didn't have a problem with Daniel Jones getting a contract and he signed immediately. Derek Carr got a contract that was celebrated, right? Garoppolo just went to the Raiders, but the day that the Ravens put the non-exclusive tag on Lamar, 6-7 teams that all need contracts said we out. How is that possible? That's not coincidental. I don't buy it.
Yeah, Falcons were
It
number
doesn't smell
one.
good. Right.
Falcons were number one and saying, yeah, we out. But it's like, when's the last time somebody announced they were out?
Announced they were out.
Yeah, people just don't do. They just don't say nothing.
They just don't sign him, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think that's about?
Yeah.
So why would they do that?
Because I think the owners have gotten together and said we're not going to let him get this deal. And for people who want to argue that he's been injured, he has. But if you watch and you go back and look, here's a couple. He didn't get injured running. He got injured in the pocket, right? So it's not his style of play. Tell me what number one receiver he's had. Tell me what number one running back he's had. The excuses that they want to make about why Lamar Jackson shouldn't get paid. Here's a team that ought to sign him. The Jets. I wouldn't fool around with Aaron
Rodgers.
What's his name? Rodgers.
Yeah.
I would not till he comes out of the dark hole or room or wherever the heck he's been.
Right.
You know,
the dark room.
The dark room, the dark, you know.
Well, yeah, there was, you know, he spent 4 days in there, and then somebody said he comes out of that hole, and it means 6 more years and no playoffs for the Packers. It's like he was Punxsutawney.
How committed is he going to be? That's the other thing. Like Lamar's 26 years old,
right?
Aaron there's no question if he's committed. Is he going to come to work for OTAs or is he going to show up in August? Right? Which Aaron Rodgers are you going to get? And if I was the Jets, I know it sounds big and sexy and oh my gosh, and he can still play. I'm not saying he can't play.
Right.
But I wouldn't want to have to deal with it's too much you don't know. I'd take Lamar Jackson if it were me.
But he's not, you know, Rodgers is 19 years in the league. How many more years does he have? He's not Tom Brady. You know.
He's not Tom Brady. And is he going to go and work with because he's got talent with those young receivers? No. And I heard who was it one day on one of the sports shows saying, well, that's not his responsibility. If you're the quarterback, it is your responsibility to come in and develop some chemistry with your receivers. I mean, you can't just show up on Thursday and we start the league on Friday. Yeah, I'm not. Well, the you can tell I'm not a big fan.
I was gonna say not a fan, huh?
Well, the precedence was set on I'm not going to help you when he was in Green Bay because he had a quarterback in front of him who says it's not my job to help Aaron Rodgers. And I think Brett
I'm talking about helping the other quarterback. I'm talking about helping your team, the receiver, so that you guys can have some chemistry and compete at the level that you're supposed to be able to compete at because you're so talented and you can throw the ball better than anybody.
Right. So
do so for sure.
Say that again, Tree.
Oh, I just said it would make sense. What Kim is saying would make sense for them to do, and it doesn't seem. Just can't understand why.
Chemistry.
Yeah.
At some point, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do want to stay with this Lamar Jackson thing here because you know on the outside of this I hear tinges of racism. The fact that he's a black quarterback is playing a role in this. I don't, you know, as I look at it, I understand some concern about his injuries, but then I look at how many guys is better than this guy, and it ain't many.
Right.
It ain't Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career.
It is not.
Daniel Jones obviously is pretty good. The contract he got from the Giants.
Yeah,
he's pretty good, but he ain't better than Lamar Jackson.
That being facetious in the idea.
Right.
You know, he got paid. Everybody's been paid, but
here's a guy who's been hurt and nobody talks about when it's time to give him a contract. It's not the same kind of money. Garoppolo,
yeah.
When hasn't he been hurt? Yeah. He's really good when he plays.
Yeah. When he plays. Yeah. They were on the third quarterback this year, the 49ers.
when he plays. And I know, because you remember, if you go back when he got drafted, Ozzie Newsome, that was the last official pick he made before he retired. And the word was he wanted to make sure this young brother was drafted in the first round because we've been hearing about Lamar, where he's really not a quarterback. You remember the cat from
Gil Brandt. You say he wanted to make him a tight end or something?
No, it wasn't Brandt. It was the guy, Bill Polian.
Bill Polian.
Polian.
Okay.
He should be a wide receiver
Yeah.
coming out of and Najee went and picked him. And to Polian's credit, he said, "Hey man, I missed on that. This kid."
Well, remember his mother had to really kind of advocate for him when he was in college because they wanted to switch him to quarterback, and she called and said, "Nah, that's not what we're doing." Right?
And Tree, this is something that's been going on. You can go all the way back to 1967 when the Oakland Raiders drafted Eldridge Dickey out of Tennessee State in the first round and promptly moved him to wide receiver. And Eldridge was like, "Dude, I'm a quarterback." And
wasn't Tony Dungy a quarterback? And then
he was a quarterback in Minnesota.
He was a
quarterback in Minnesota, and then they switched into the
defensive back.
So I understand when I hear these whispers of race regarding the Jackson situation, because clearly we're not beyond that now. Just look at the number of coaches and administrators we have in these respective leagues throughout the spectrum of sports, other than the NBA. You know,
right.
NBA brothers hired and fired all the time, and that's all you ever want.
Because the opportunity.
Just because you're black, that doesn't mean you're a good coach. We know that, you know. But give us the chance to F up too,
and get another chance.
Because
they get a second chance.
More than 1 year, because you're gonna get a dumpster fire.
Right.
Houston, brother, and Wilkes in Arizona, and then he comes and he does a great job in Carolina. He still gets fired. And then what is your guy down there last year?
Houston Culley.
No, but after him, just got fired.
Lovie Smith.
Lovie, yeah. Lovie gets up there and he's like, "I'm not tanking. I'm going for the win. Y'all gonna fire me? Yes, take that." So that's how you're supposed to go out.
I know they cussing Lovie every day down there, Kim.
They are. Yeah. But here's the thing: all of that from when they hired David Culley to firing him. Here's the deal: there was no reason to fire David Culley. You're not trying to win, right? The plan was never to have him long term. I think everybody knew that. Probably even David Culley knew that. Why fire the man? It was an ego thing with Nick because David had started kind of pushing back a little bit on, now I'm not going to just stand at this podium and say anything, right? And Nick fired him. And the idea that there was even a conversation about hiring Josh McDowell, who has as much NFL coaching experience as the four of us do collectively, that's ridiculous, right? People are saying, well, one day he'll be a great coach. Maybe he will. Maybe he should start as an assistant. I don't know. Who gets to come in as a head coach? But that's, and so now that Jack Easterby is gone, it's easy for people to say, oh, all of that was because of Jack Easterby. That wasn't Nick. Nick is here because of Jack Easterby. And so Nick doesn't get a clean slate because, they got rid of Jack.
Everything I hear is about Nick. Really, I'm surprised you're saying that the other guy is getting all the heat, but it's like Casario's the guy that's making all the calls or trying to make.
The other guy's gone, right? So they're saying that the stuff that happened before, because I say for the 2 years that Casario's been here, I'm not impressed. I've not been impressed with what he's done with free agency. I think he does. You know how if you're on a job, whatever business you work in, and there's somebody who's just always, they look busy, they doing a lot of stuff, but it's not productive. Yeah. To me, that's what Nick Caserio does. He just does a lot of stuff, a bunch of moves. I mean, we have 30 new players, but none of them can play, right? And then you gave him these contracts, and you got to cut them, and you eat. I mean, so I imagine, even though the McNairs have a lot of money, because you got to be, billionaire to own a team. At some point, you get tired of people wasting your money. I think, maybe not. That's a whole other financial world.
I would think so.
Right.
And Tree, you take this to the corporate world and you see a lot of the same things happen. You wonder, how the hell did this guy get in this position? How is she in this position?
I see that a lot. I've seen it a lot. Yeah. But but I think that, sometimes, the speculation, sometimes, there's some connection somewhere within there that makes those moves happen.
But you rarely see that happening when
people.
it's a person of color.
Oh no, rarely.
I mean, you just don't.
Right.
So
It's all about the connections and who you know, because you keep seeing all these. You look at these rosters of these coaches.
Jeff Saturday, Tim. Jeff Saturday.
Yeah, you see all these rosters of these coaches, and you see this. I know somebody. He knows somebody. Jeff used to play for us. Let's make him the coach.
Yeah. What's he doing now? He's an analyst. Oh yeah, he's ready.
He's ready. He's real ready.
They get the chances, and
absolutely. I mean, if your name is I'm
prove
thinking
ourselves.
What's my guy? The 49ers, Shanahan. If his name was Smith, you think he'd have gotten the job in the NFL? If it was somebody else, I mean, if your daddy was a head coach, and then you got all these other folks who get up there and they're buddies, and then they hired their buddies in the different leagues. I mean, everybody's worked together on somebody's staff. It's like a big fraternity, except for some other people. The opportunities aren't there.
Right, because if he had performed the way, if his name was Smith and he had performed the way Shanahan did in that Super Bowl loss to the Patriots, he would have got a head coach job. He blew that game.
Why you want to bring that up?
I'm just trying to make a point.
why you want to Hey,
you know what I'm saying, right?
Lost to the Chiefs. You should have used that one. Don't talk.
They just made a movie about it, 80 for Brady. Matt Ryan ought to be up for Oscar after his performance.
He was released today by the Colts, by the way.
Yeah.
Who was?
Matt Ryan.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. So there's that.
Do you think he's done?
No, he's got a one-day contract back here in Atlanta. And then he's done.
He's going to retire.
But you never know. I mean, they think about how long. Who's the guy I'm thinking about? He played some time in Miami. Was the last place that I remember. What is it? Who am I talking about?
Fitzpatrick.
Fitzy. How many places has he been?
I think he had 14 teams he played
14 teams. I mean, Houston's one of them. Like he had a stint in Houston. They recycled them. Yeah.
Is that an unusual amount? I take it.
Yeah. Quarterbacks, they don't get hurt, so they could, like Andy Dalton signing with Carolina. How many teams has this cat been with?
Yeah.
The Cowboys, the Bengals,
Bears.
The Bears. Where did he start? With the Bengals, right?
He played a long time in Cincinnati. He had some good years there.
Yeah.
Hey, Kim, well, you think they're definitely going to draft a quarterback, right? With that,
I hesitate.
If they stay there.
Yeah, I think that listen. I'm gonna be honest. I can't call it because I don't know. See, here's the thing. I mean, we know they're not going to be good this year. So, do they say, let's get, a defensive player, right? With that pick, they got the 12th pick also in the first round. And of course, they lost a pick in the 5th round with some foolishness related to Sean Watson back with the Bill O'Brien era. That dude destroyed this team, but I digress. Will they say we're not going to be good anyway? We can build. We've got to have some other pieces, and we can get the quarterback later. I don't know what they'll do. I mean, the thought is they'll absolutely get a pick with a quarterback with that pick. I'm not really sure, but let me ask you guys this. So I was talking to somebody yesterday who said people want to blame Lovey. No, they asked me, they said, do you think that the Texans were out on Bryce Young anyway, that Nick didn't want Bryce Young? And I've always said, I'm not sure that Bryce Young is a Nick Caserio kind of guy because of his size. He's real big into prototypes, right? They can't play. Davis Mills is a prototype. He can't play dead. But is that why? Because, he could have gone to Lovey and said, we're going to deactivate Cooks. He could have deactivated a few players. You can't tell a coach how to coach, but you could have just pulled them out in that last game of the season. If you're saying we got to get the number 1 pick. I don't know if he just was like, oh, I'll just let Lovey do whatever he wants and then fire him when the game's over. I don't know the answer to that, but I would not be surprised if he would not be their kind of guy. And of course, CJ Stroud, who would could be the second pick, is also represented by David Mulugheta, the guy who represented Deshaun Watson. I think it'd be foolish if the Texans would say we out on somebody that has David Mulugheta as their agent, because he's like the new Lee Steinberg. He's going to have great players because he gets people good deals. And I don't think you want to, what is it? Bite your cushion nose or spite your face or whatever it is. Yeah. I don't think you want to do that. But I really don't know, because Nick Caserio to me is a wild card.
Okay. Well, let's pivot away from NFL over to the NBA now. And, I want to talk about Ja Morant and his issues. And now I understand today he's going to go into counseling, and his return is, they don't have a to be determined type of thing. What do you make of his entire situation?
Me?
Yeah.
It was confusing, right? I was like, what is happening? If he felt he needed help, glad he's getting it. And I just hope that whatever that help is, it is helpful for him. Because if it's like, wow, I got some stuff going on, the stress, I'm not dealing with it or navigating this well, I'm glad that he took a step away. He may have been encouraged to do it. I don't know what role the team played, but he had to at least go. He had to be willing to go, because he could have just been like, hell no, I'm not doing that. Right? So I'm glad he's getting the help he needs. The whole thing, but apparently it came to a head with the gun waving and the live Instagram, right? It had been some other things. And, what are the checks and balances in place? Who's paying attention to say, hey, wait, Ja, slow down. You're moving in a way that could be problematic, until it got to that point. So I don't know the real story, because we cover Memphis there in the conference, but I'm not in the city, so I don't have any real insight. But I'm curious, because that's what we are as journalists, but we may never really know.
And wasn't it that Stephen A. Smith said something about his father, and that his father should, I guess, step up, not be his friend.
His father turning up with him. That's the thing. He doesn't have, from what it looks like, great leadership, because he's out, his dad is out, and they kicking it. Somebody might want to be the parent.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was the problem I had, because he's there courtside mixing it up with people, and instead of just say, son, chill, son, we conduct ourselves a little bit better than that, son. We don't have rooms full of dollars flowing around, and because it's kind of curious that he goes into counseling after those photos from the New York Post come out of a previous trip to a club,
right?
And it's like, yeah, I got to do some damage control here.
Well, and then there was the allegation or the accusation about him hitting a teenager or something.
Yeah,
a 17-year-old kid. Punched
in
him
Denver,
out.
I think, or something. Just a lot. So
it's a lot.
Man, when you in that situation, this guy 23 years old, got all the money in the world, got all the time in the world during the regular season, man. If you're not playing a game, you might have a couple hours of practice. You got 22 hours in a day. So it is plenty of time to get into anything you want to get into. And if you're not mature enough to handle that, that can become a problem. My buddy Paul Mokeski, who I do a show with, former Milwaukee Bucks center, he talked about that on our show a few weeks ago. The freedom that you have as an NBA player and the opportunities that you have, because you're a grown man, no curfew, you're a grown man. And some guys, as he said, make grown man decisions. Some guys don't. And clearly he's not. And clearly he doesn't have anybody to tell him, bruh, this ain't it.
Yeah.
And he needs to find that.
Well, you know what? Some people get offended or get annoyed because, LeBron's name always comes up in terms of how he conducted himself, right? He's got his boys around him, but he was like, listen, so you want to, we can roll, but I need you, you want to be an agent? You need to go learn that, right? We're going to, everybody around, they may be his boys, but they got the skills. They went and got what they needed instead of just being we going to turn up and kick it and, you waving a sim out and just, who's around you? Who's in your circle? Mm-hmm. Who are you? Who's being the grown up, and who are you willing to listen to? Yeah, can you learn that at counseling? I don't know.
Hey, LeBron, that brother whines on the court, man, but the way he handles his business off the court is just outstanding.
He came into the league like that, right? Yeah. As an 18, 19-year-old with a suit on. Like he came in and talk about how parents, remember he had to kind of get his mom like mom. Yeah. He had to kind of get her. He was like the parent.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the situation at Alabama, the kid Darius Miles is in serious trouble now. In fact, he's currently incarcerated, facing murder charges for the shooting of the young lady, and I apologize for not remembering her name because her name needs to be remembered, and I apologize for that. But it turns out, allegedly, the shooter was not Darius, but one of his boys who came down to Alabama from D.C. to hang out with him while he's there. So, they're not the kind of guys you need to be hanging with, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you at the University of Alabama, I mean, why do you need a gun, man? I know you're in Alabama now. So we know everybody's packing. I know that.
I think it's just the culture,
Yeah.
And it's accessibility. There's the culture of, I need a gun, protection, whatever it is, show. But if you are not thinking wisely about it,
right.
Or, as we talked about, somebody says, hey, go get my gun for me.
Right.
It depends on how you, hey, can you bring my gun? Or, hey, bring me my gun. How would you stop and ask, or would you just bring it? Or, hey, what's up? And we don't know what happened in that conversation, but he brought it. The other guy brought it. And
and even job, bro. You think you need the gun? You need to hire somebody to carry the gun for you, bro, because you got it. You got it like that.
Right. See, there was an incident supposedly where members of his group had this red dot on this laser pointer on some members of the media. That wasn't ever verified by the Memphis authorities, by the way. But they were saying that somebody had a red dot pointed on them during the game, and they said it was Ja's fault. And it's like, people can say just about anything now that there's a door open. He's allowed people to give, people are going to look at it and maybe it is true, maybe it isn't, which is really sad because he was about to become the face of the NBA.
He really was.
Yeah. I mean, he had everything to gain, but he couldn't, chill out. I think, was it Stephen Davis? Not Davis. What is the name of the Australian ball player that plays on the
Stephen Adams?
Stephen Adams. He said he tried to have interventions before saying, look, we're on the road, because I think their record is abysmal on the road. They're really kicking it in Memphis, but on the road, they stink. He's like, when we're on the road, we need to be rested up in a hotel somewhere, just sitting down and waiting for the game. But, young cats with money to burn out in the streets.
New money.
New money.
Yeah.
New money.
And his homies around.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why they are currently the number 2 seed. I was tied last night. I hadn't looked at the standings for the number 2 seed, but I don't trust them to do anything in the playoffs, even if Ja was there, because I just don't, because he's not the only guy on this team that wants to be a gangster. You got the thing with Brooks. They want to fight half the time instead of play. I don't trust a team like that to churn out those tough wins that you're going to have in the playoffs, even with a great talent like Ja. That's why the Lakers, who may barely get in, if the Lakers barely get in and happen to catch Memphis in the first round, I'm taking the Lakers. I'm gonna go with LeBron and AD, two old heads who know about winning basketball over these young cats.
Well, the Lakers are right now in that ninth spot. I mean, they'd be in the play-in, but they're 7-3 over the last 10 games. Of course, they play here in Houston tomorrow night. LeBron is not playing, but yeah.
But yeah, you say. I was listening to you, Rick, about that. But I was thinking too the other night, no Ja, and you got a full complement of the Golden State Warriors, and they crushed Golden State. Yeah. So I mean,
but they went to crib too, right?
Yeah, another team that doesn't do well on the road, which is Golden State.
Yeah,
Golden State, when they leave San Francisco, they become the Pistons, man. I don't know what happens to them. That is really remarkable.
It is remarkable.
They're sleepy. I don't know.
Is that time difference?
That's it. But I'm looking at what happened with you guys last night, Kim. I mean, the Rockets. I mean, the Celtics drilled the Hawks Saturday night. They scored 134 points, and then last night they lose to you guys.
Right, and so it was interesting. I was watching something earlier, and they were like, and of course the Rockets are. Listen, the Rockets are the Rockets, but it's funny, after the game, Tatum was saying, "Listen, their record's not good, but they have some talent, right? They do have some talent, and it wasn't. I mean, Boston still has something to play for. They're 2 games behind Milwaukee for the top spot in the East. They're 47-22." Yeah, they're 2.5 games back of Milwaukee. So it's not like they're not trying to win. Right. And I think Campbell ended up with 49 points. But, they played. I was there and I was going down the stretch. Here we go again. Because usually this team, which is what youth gives you, they're unable to hold off, right, when a team is coming back. Especially, Boston's really good. And they're one of the best defensive teams in the league. And it was a good win for the Rockets, not so much for Boston. But, we'll see what happens.
Is the city still celebrating Dusty and the boys? Are they ready?
Yeah, they're in spring training, so and
ready to start all over now.
Ready to start over. I think most people here are like, you celebrate the Astros because otherwise you got the Rockets and the Texans. And so it's not a whole lot you can celebrate unless you gravitate.
Time out. You have a really great helmet on your XFL team, whatever that squad's name is.
Roughnecks.
Yeah, the Roughnecks. I love the name. I mean, that's awesome.
And it's Wade Phillips is the head coach.
And they're 4-0. Okay.
They're 4-0. Okay.
Wade can still look at you. All right.
I mean, it's the Roughnecks. I mean, it's the XFL.
It's a great name.
It's a great name.
Absolutely.
And they're 4-0. That's great. But listen, right now in this city, all people are thinking about, and when they talk about football, is the draft, right? What's going to happen with the draft? Now that D'Amico rounded out his staff, they went to the combine. Free agency officially starts today or tomorrow? What's today?
Well, it started yesterday.
Started yesterday.
Well, but it's official tomorrow. It's
official tomorrow. Yeah, okay. This is still the tampering period.
The calendar year starts tomorrow, but it's like all these deals are cut.
Right. You're hearing these deals that are cut already, So that the free agency, people excited about what is this Texans team going to do. Last night we talked about the Rockets. It was a Celtics crowd. Okay. And I think, you think about a team like Boston, people, they're fans. If you are a fan of the Celtics, because they're in the East and Houston's in the West, they only come to town once a year because the Rockets are not playing well. It's a lot of available tickets. It was a lot of Celtics fans there last night. I mean, it was the Houston fans hung in there and they kind of held their own, but it was a very, very green Celtic crowd.
Wow. Kim, before we get out of here, and we have been celebrating, we talked about it last week, Women's History Month, and with your stellar career, I just want you to know, who inspired you, and then what advice would you give to other women who are interested in doing what you do?
Wow, that's, when I started, which was a really long time ago, about 30 years ago, I was 12. That's what I tell people. There weren't a lot of
You were
women.
8. I thought you were 8 when you started.
I was 12. I was 12. I was a little bit older than that. Yeah. And I remember Robin Roberts was kind of early in her career, but I remember a lady who used to work for CBS named Gail Gardner. I remember her.
Yes.
She was a really talented journalist, and so I liked her work. I don't know that I was necessarily, if I would say she inspired me. I just knew that this was something I wanted to do, and my interest initially was television, although I started in print because I thought that would give me more credibility as a journalist, because there weren't really any women in TV or talk radio. And so the journey has been really interesting and long, because if you in TV or any of the industry, any of the mediums, you just go to a smaller market. But the idea of going to a small market where they have 2 people in sports and a news director making one of those people me was tough, right? You're in small town USA, and are we going to give one of these jobs to this Black woman? It's so different for our audience. And so I started in print. Then I ended up doing BET before I ever did local television. And then I did talk radio. So it's been an interesting kind of journey. What I always tell people is get as much experience as you can. One, to figure out if you want to do this, because you got to want to do it despite what you think it is. Like, you may think, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to these places, I'm going to travel and see these games and to make all this money. And that's not what it is initially. It may never be that for you, but it's going to take a while. So first say, do I even like what this requires? If you want to work in media, especially if you want to work in sports, that's a lot of nights, weekends, and holidays. Am I willing to give those things up? And if your answer is no, then don't do this because that's really a part of it. And I always say, become a really good writer and a storyteller, because that is what separates those of us who do well and those of us who don't, right? Because you can then produce, you can tell great stories on TV, you can be a writer. But if you can't write and you're just interested in, hey, look at me, I'm on TV, you're going to have a rough road, because while YouTube's great, most of us are there now. It's not, everybody on YouTube isn't good at what they're doing. And so you've got to find a way. And I like to use this example of, God, what's his name now? He was a Today Show host forever. Ryan Gumbel. Like, I loved his work early. He was a great storyteller. That's back when you could tell a 4.5, 5-minute piece on the news, right? He used to tell these stories, and then it translated and he tells, which is why I like Real Sports, because it's real storytelling. And a lot of people don't want to write. They just want to get in front of a camera or get in front of a microphone, and I just want to talk.
Right.
Learn how to tell a story. And follow somebody's work and say, oh, I like this work. And then find out, look at what they do. That's what I would suggest. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I have seen watched Chalk Talk. It's very good. Very good. People should make room for you. And so they're lost.
Well, thank you. I had a friend.
People follow your show, by the way.
So if you follow me, it's on every platform. I just started on Twitch because of a guy that does a Twitch show, and I don't know that I'm going to manage Twitch, but I added it. But it's everywhere live on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Central Time, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, every place. And then it becomes a podcast. I've got to get better about uploading them all to podcasts. But if you follow me on Twitter at Kim Y. Davis, you'll get updates about what I have going on. And at Kim Y. Davis Media on Instagram. So those are probably, I'm on LinkedIn. And I also put my show on LinkedIn. I have an audience actually on LinkedIn. And I'm surprised sometimes at the people who I run into. They're like, yeah, I watch it on LinkedIn. So, yeah, right. So there's a branding person was like, you should not be on multiple platforms. Different people are different places. And my audience is kind of varied. right? Because I like to say Chalk Talk, it's sports is more than a game. And that's really what my show is. So that's what I try to do.
I tell you, I loved hearing you talk about your journey through this business. And you need to be teaching somebody's journalism class too, because they could,
Yeah.
I know a lot of young people that could use some sage advice. I thought that was just so well said, Kim. Hey, when were you on the air in New Orleans?
I was on When or Where.
Yeah, when and where?
So I was there in the early 2000s. I was at ABC WGNO.
Okay.
And that's back when it was in the World Trade Center. So that was pre-Katrina. So I've been at 2 ABC stations. I was ABC there. I was ABC when I was in Illinois, and then NBC and CBS here. And I still do some CBS and Fox here. And then I did NBC college, the network for college games, and then BET back when they did real stories, right? When we had that.
I lived in a place.
Show.
I lived in a place in North Carolina. I'm not going to say where. I could. Okay, King, North Carolina. When we moved there, we asked about BET. They're like, "Oh, we don't have that." And so,
wow,
we might have been one of a few Black families. I was like, "What? No BET?" So I missed like years of BET. So I'm sorry I didn't see you there.
Yeah, that was. We did. They used to do some good work. That's where I met guys like Mike Wilbon and Bill Roden, because we did the show, and then we did specials. I was always on the like All-Star Game or NFL, whatever those, the championship. We would do a special. I did some pieces traveling around for them. We did it was some journalism. And I was sad that Bob Johnson sold out to Booty Shaking, but hey, it was a moneymaker.
The sports reporter started at BET.
Right.
That's the show I did. The Budweiser Sports Report.
Oh wow,
that's right. Back in the day, had Buddy D passed away in New Orleans when you were there?
Who?
Buddy
No,
D,
he was still there.
Okay.
Oh, he was great. And I'm thinking about the guy in Houston right now. Is Mark Berman still at 26?
He is still there.
He is the hardest working and the most plugged in dude,
right.
of the TV people. Because the TV folks, like you're saying, just want to sit up there and read the prompter. This guy does the work.
Well, I'm gonna push back just a little bit, because there's some guys in the market that do a little more than that. But I'm also gonna say this: Mark Berman is the hardest working guy, not just in TV. Period. Like, he works really hard. Because he doesn't have great presence, which you need that too for television. And a lot of the stuff he does is much more impressive to other journalists than it is to people at home. So you also have to know how to translate what you do for the audience who's going to be tuning into you.
Okay, I'm speaking from when I was there, like about 30
he's
years ago. I'm talking about like 30 years ago, when there are people you had like Giff Nielsen, who never did anything.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking about back in the day.
Oh yeah. No.
Mark was all the way up here, and these guys are way down.
No. He was. There was a guy back then, Tim Melton, who actually had like a heart attack or a stroke or something on the air, on the set when he got off the air. He used to be the weekend guy, the ABC station here for years. Tim was one of those guys who told great stories, right? There's a guy at the CBS station now who actually does what we would call enterprise storytelling. Jason actually goes out. And so when he first came to the market, there are other people who would be like, "Oh, look at this guy, he's such a joke," because they're just doing highlights and scores. But if you've got to expand your audience now, how do you do that? Because if I just want highlights and scores, why am I watching your show? You got 2.5 minutes, maybe 3 on a really good night for your whole sportscast. I'm going to go to ESPN for highlights and scores. Right. What are you giving me? And you mentioned something, Ricky, about, I have people sometimes that'll reach out and say, "I'd love to be an intern or hang out with you." And so I will tell if you want to know the business, I'm happy to tell you the business if you're interested in developing a craft, right? But I've had young women come and you can't go with me dressed like that, right? I'm not your mom, and they don't want to be told anything. That's great, but that's not what I do, and I can't. There's one lady on Instagram, and she would always send me these pictures, and she's either bending over with a little bit of short skirt. I said, "Well, what are you? What can I teach you?" Like, but I don't want to be insulting because then it'll be this whole thing right online. So I just have to not respond, right? But I've had people that have called and said, "Hey, I had an intern when I worked at the NBC station who reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, 'Are you still coaching people?'" And I said, "What are you asking me?" Because I do media training, and so she said, "It's much more corporate," and she said, "Well, because when I was an intern, I learned more from you about television than I have in my career." And she was on like her third job. And she said, "I know that there's stuff I need to work on. And I have agents that want to sign me, but they're not trying to help me get better. And I want to get better." And I was really impressed. I said, so I did. I worked with her for like a year. We got her, got her another job. And she got better. I mean, I said, "Well, you tell me where you think you need help." She said, "Everywhere." Worked on her look. We worked on, she was a great storyteller. She was an anchor in Iowa, but she wasn't as comfortable anchoring. So I was like, and here's where it comes back to writing. I said, so why is it that if you go out and tell a story, your delivery's night and day? I said, is it because the people, you're reading somebody else's work. You've got producers that aren't real strong. And she said, maybe that's it. So we had to work with how you got to get familiar and connected to that copy that you don't really have time to write, right? So there's so many things that you have to learn to be able to be good. But she wanted to be good, and I was super happy to help her.
Hey, and
I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop sending you IG photos. Okay.
I didn't want to tell anybody, Tree, but thank God, please.
Look, I know we have gone.
I apologize.
We have gone over our time, Kim. This has been great, but I do want to ask you, how do you think the female sports journalists are being used by network television today?
Well, most of them are sidelines, right? Which isn't bad, but I don't know
Is
how
there
much you're
more
getting from that.
Clearly, there's more of it. Yeah,
there's more than that, and I see it. ESPN's done a better job of putting people in those analyst roles and allowing some people some opportunities. I'm not super huge fan of ESPN, but they've done a better job. But here's one of the things that happens, Ricky. So people think that there's so many more opportunities from women because they see them at the network. But just like you say, all politics is local, sports is local. And I will tell you that I am the only Black woman in Houston, and I have been probably since Pam Oliver left, that does sports here. And I've been in and out of the market, while I work other places. I'm the first Black woman to ever do sports here. And I'm currently now the only one, right? And so that's not something that I celebrate. I feel like press boxes have gotten less diverse from when I started. Wow. Do you think that, Tim? I mean, when I go around and see places, it's less diverse. And I'm like, how are we going backwards?
Yeah. Right. And I think it's part of it too, is the how the business has changed. The print isn't as emphasized as much as electronic media is, where you got blogs and instantaneous results. People are not gonna wait like back in the day. I wonder how the Rockets did on the West Coast last night. They're not gonna wait for the newspaper or miss it altogether. It's gonna have to be in their hand in real time. And
the newspaper's gonna post it online.
Right.
The deadlines are earlier. It's a much shorter story. You know what I mean? It's a whole different dynamic.
Right.
I think that's part of it. But at the end of the day, the people that are making the decisions, they haven't changed a whole lot.
Kim, are you still going? Do you go to NABJ? Still?
I haven't been in a number of years. Mm-hmm. NABJ used to be so much fun. I mean, and we would have our gatherings, especially on the sports side. But it's become very ESPN dominated, right? Really? And so if you're, because they sponsor a lot of it. And if you're not like in the clique, I'm just going to tell you, then you're not really in the clique.
Yeah,
and
I haven't been
kind of on the outside. So I've stopped going.
Actually. Yeah, I stopped going a long time ago. So yeah.
It was once a true brotherhood. I mean,
it really was. Yeah. Hey,
before we go, I got to ask you, recharge your batteries
or something. Mm-hmm. Yes, you would. And we would have these real, like, I remember being at like NABJ or in Final Fours in different places, but we would be sitting around with like George Ravlin and John Thompson. I mean, we would have real conversations. You walked away feeling empowered. You learned something, right? And you connected on a level that's very different from the last couple times I went. Mm-hmm. And it was driven by status, which is just driven by where you were.
Right.
And that's unfortunate.
I'm thinking of the NABJ that was in Houston, and I think you went and picked John Thompson up from the airport.
Yeah.
And he was sitting around there and just shooting the breeze.
Yeah.
Once he got to the hotel. I mean, how often does that happen?
Right.
And really that, I spent 35 years in the business, and the beautiful part of that, I mean, I enjoyed every moment of it, but it was the relationships I made. Yeah. I met Tim in a press box at Tennessee State, and we've been friends ever since. That was 30-something years ago. And that is the thing that, and you would feel that when you would go to NABJ, and you said it, Tim, you would get recharged.
Yeah.
I started, I used to read Street and Smith and Stick.
Yeah.
Is Stick still around?
Yes, Stick.
Yeah, W.A. Stick that he used to do, but I'm not seeing him in years. He wrote boxing. Yeah, he was the Chronicle.
And he would do TSU for Street and Smith. Mm-hmm. And I actually had a chance to meet him in Houston one. And I told him, man, you were my inspiration. I got
with that cowboy hat that he always wore.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a beautiful thing. But we were great. Kim, you got to come back and see us.
I will. I'm sorry about the mix-up last week, but I like visiting with you guys. Before we go, can I just be petty and ask your thoughts about the Tiger Woods lawsuit? I mean,
leave them women alone.
We packing for a trip, and then she got her bags, and then he said, "You out?" What kind of?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was like,
that brother cold-blooded, man. He's cold-blooded.
Y'all better stop thinking you the one. That's my only
really.
That's harsh.
But she's gonna get that 30 million, though. I bet she does.
She ain't gonna get no 30 million for what?
Right. How many?
He said she wasn't a resident.
Right.
Hey, how many putts you made? How many birdies you made?
Oh, come on now.
She don't have any kids, right? I'm sure
she had to sign a prenup to start.
But that's the thing. She's trying to avoid it. She's trying to avoid all the NDA and all that stuff.
Yeah. So she can write a book? What? I don't know.
But now we know what his competitors faced in his heyday.
Right.
When he be looking over
he's
this
strategic.
He got a 20-footer for birdie. He's looking it over. Y'all know I'm gonna make this. I know I'm gonna make this. So get ready to watch me make this. Go ahead, Tiger. Yeah, that's
I just wanted to end it on a light note. That was funny.
Thank you.
Wow. But anyway. We gotta get out of here, guys.
All right, listen. I appreciate y'all. It's always fun. Next time we'll talk about what's going to happen with Steven Silas, because I think, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to make
it. Yeah.
I mean, finish the season, but
for Kim and a brother here in Detroit, Dwayne Casey, he will not make, and two good coaches. But if you ain't got players, you ain't got a chance. So, but anyway, for Kim Davis, Tree Mcdougal, Tim Turner and Rickey Hampton, peace, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. You've been watching. You get what you get. See you next Tuesday. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right.